just want to take a quick moment to say thank you, thank you, thank you. Thank you for all of your support, and thank you because we have hit our initial goal of 500 subscribers. Woo! And I couldn't be more grateful, and I couldn't have done it without you. So now it's time to set a new goal. My new goal is 1,000 subscribers. I know we can do it. If you haven't already, make sure you hit that subscribe button. Don't just watch, participate, become a part of this unafraid, unapologetic, always seeking the truth community. Your support helps us keep the content coming and growing and rocking and rolling. Thank you so much for being with us, and I appreciate each and every one of you. Well, welcome. Welcome to the Janelle King Show. I'm Janelle King. This is Extra 106.3, and this is where we discuss kitchen table topics that are typically banned from family gatherings but are absolutely necessary in order to have a strong republic. And today's table topic, we are talking about the harsh reality of the state of our youth. I want to address a very tough but necessary conversation because the reality facing our youth, especially young Black men in America today, is sobering. But ignoring it isn't an option if we want to build a stronger future. So let's start with the facts. According to recent reports, approximately 70% of Black children are born out of wedlock. And the fatherless crisis is deeply intertwined with many of the challenges our youth face. Without strong, involved fathers, children are more likely to struggle academically, emotionally, and socially. They're more likely to drop out of school, get involved with gangs, and fall into criminal activity. Nearly 60% of all released prisoners are rearrested within 3 years. And for young Black men, the numbers are even more alarming. They project that roughly 1 in 3 Black men will spend time in prison at some point in their lives. The vast majority of those incarcerated are involved in crimes stemming from economic desperation or the sense of a lack of opportunity or broken family structures. All of this paints a picture of a cycle that's hard to break. Few fathers at home, unforeseen economic opportunities, and a lack of confidence and motivation to take personal responsibility. But here's the truth we cannot ignore. A failed system isn't just about law enforcement or prisons. It's about addressing the root causes, which means supporting education, addressing the lack of family stability, and the lack of community empowerment. We must restore the role of fathers, create an apprenticeship program in our private sector that leads to our young men and our young people getting valuable skills, and create opportunities for our youth to succeed overall. Because if we don't act now, these cycles will only deepen, and the future generations will continue to face these same struggles. We must be honest and bold in our approach because the strength of our nation depends on the strength of our young people, especially those who have been left behind. For too long, bad policies have been allowed to run unchecked, and the consequences are clear. We see rising crime, we see a broken family structure, and we see a future that's uncertain for our children. We see it in communities across the country. Policies that promote dependency instead of responsibility. They only deepen the cycle of poverty and crime, leaving generations behind. But this isn't about numbers, this is about lives. It's about children growing up feeling lost, planned out of failure by outdated policies, and ignored accountability, and focuses on external threats as if they have no control of their own. You see, when we fail to put the right policies in place, we're sending a message that the government's role is to bloat programs rather than empower our families to thrive independently. We need leadership that sticks to the core principles, supporting education, strengthening our families, and encouraging personal responsibility. Because if we don't, we're risking the future of our country for long-term gains and political convenience. It's no secret that mental health issues among our young people have also skyrocketed. According to recent reports, anxiety and depression rates among teens have doubled over the last decade. Many doctors and parents are seeing levels of stress never before recorded. Health awareness is vital. We also need proactive solutions, more support, better access, and most importantly, a cultural shift that fosters resilience instead of helplessness. And now add to that the rise of technology and social media. And while these tools have connected us like never before and allowed us to keep up with family functions and friends, they've also changed how our youth communicate and relate to each other. Social skills in real life are waning. The art of face to face conversation, empathy, and conflict resolution is fading swiftly. And it's all replaced by screens and shorts and instant messages. You see, the digital world, though vast, often isolates our young people, making genuine relationships harder to deal, making genuine relationships harder to build. And here's a big one: our young people's work ethic. You see, we live in a time where many Gen Zers lack motivation to build long-term careers. Why? Because having a stable, lasting job doesn't seem to excite them anymore. They're more focused on quick wins and instant gratification and experiences that provide immediate pleasure rather than working hard over years to achieve meaningful successes. They frown on those who retire and praise influencers who made a living on unstable platforms. This attitude is extremely dangerous. You see, it impacts everything: personal growth, family stability, and the economy. Our nation depends on individuals willing to work hard, take responsibility, and persevere through adversity. But if the next generation isn't motivated to do that, it weakens our foundation. So, where do we go from here? Well, I have a special guest who is the subject matter expert on these types of discussions. And I can vouch for him 100% because he is my brother. Yes, he is my blood brother. We have the same mother and father. He works with at-risk youth who are heading to the juvenile justice system. He's an advocate serving as a mediator between families and the system. So when we return, you're going to hear a conversation that I had on camera with my brother, William Jones. So stay tuned. Don't leave the table. We'll be right back. You're listening to The Janelle King Show right here on Extra 106.3.
Hello, everyone. My name is Suzanne Guy, and this is the Church's Moment. There is an incredible opportunity to start a distinct pro-life ministry at your church. We started one at our church about 5 years ago, and the fruit has been tangibly beautiful. We do monthly meetings that educate and equip the body of believers on sanctity of human life issues from womb to tomb by bringing in and featuring different pro-life leaders from all over Georgia, as well as featuring different ministries like post-abortion healing ministries or foster care ministries. There are so many great community partners out there. And then the second part of this pro-life ministry is having a care team. This is an opportunity to show moms in crisis, moms in unplanned, unwanted, or crisis pregnancies that the church is the place to run to, that the church is a safe haven and a place to go for tangible help, real hope, true compassion, friendship, and discipleship, and yes, an opportunity to share the gospel in both word and deed. Brothers and sisters in Christ, will you consider starting a distinct pro-life ministry at your church? It's so easy. Please contact me today to find out how simple this is. You can contact me at my email, proverbs31:8@att.net. This is the Church's Moment.
Well, welcome to the Janelle King Show. I'm Janelle King. This is Extra 106.3, and this is where we discuss kitchen table topics that are typically banned from family gatherings, but are absolutely necessary in order to have a strong republic. As I stated before the break, We are getting ready to have a one-on-one conversation with my brother, Mr. William Jones. William is an expert on these matters, and I'm so excited to hear from him. So, big brother, welcome to the show.
It's a pleasure to be a part of the show. Thank you for having me. Awesome.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, thank you so much for joining. And let's just start with the basic stuff. Tell the world what I already know, but they need to know. So tell them about who you are and what you do and how did you get there?
Definitely. So, like my sister said, I'm William Jones, and I'm a youth development specialist for a nonprofit by the name of Unifor One. Primarily, I mentor kids in the juvenile justice spectrum. Now, we do service kids outside of that, but the majority of the kids in our program that we provide services for are court ordered by the Juvenile Justice Department. We do mentoring, we do life skills, we do family mediations, we do anger management, job placement. We also cultivate opportunities for kids so that if they're not in a position right now to achieve the dreams that they want to achieve, we have programs that we provide to help jumpstart that process for them. You know, I'm really passionate about this work because if I can speak candid or transparently, I was one of those kids.
So let's before we go a little bit deeper into why we need mentorship, just what would you tell me if I was to ask you about the state of our youth? What would you say is the state of our youth right now, based on your work?
Well, in the population that I deal with, I would say that they're lost. A lot of our kids lack vision. They lack the proper skill sets to be products of or to be profitable in this community. A lot of them, to be honest with you, they come from broken homes and they don't have a proper example to follow. That's why it's so important that we play that role in the kid's life. Primarily, I focus on working with young men, and most of them don't have their dads. And if I can just give a number, I'll say 98% of the kids I work don't have fathers. They come from broken homes. So they've already began at a young age to normalize broken homes, toxic environments. You know, a lot of them lack self-esteem issues. You know, it's very, very unfortunate, but that's just the reality of the world that we live in.
So, would you say that the boys that you work with are they predominantly black, or what's the demographic breakdown?
So majority of the young men that I work with are African American. You know, I'll say there's maybe a 2% of Caucasians, Hispanics, but the majority is African Americans. And you know, I'm tired of seeing our young kings locked up. I'm tired of seeing our young kings in court. You know, I frequent court 3-4 times a week, and all I see is our young guys in that situation. And you know, we have to do something about it. You know, it's good to talk about change, but we have to get our hands dirty, you know, get our elbows dirty, get in the trenches with them, and be the change that we want to see in the world. And that's why I'm so passionate about being a mentor, because every kid I service has greatness in them. They may not be living in that greatness as we speak, but we need to be the people that water that seed that's in them, provide sunlight, right? Give them soil so that we can begin to nourish that individual, because there's greatness and potential that lies in each and every one of these kids that we work with.
Now, are these kids on the path to going to prison or juvenile justice? I know you said you work with the system, so do you serve like the mediator in between, going to the juvenile justice system or going into the system, or are they already in the system? Like where do you really fit in there in this process?
So the kids we service are already a part of juvenile justice. I would love to proactively get them before then, but the way our program is set up, we service the kids that are already in juvenile justice. And juvenile justice as an entirety is to rehabilitate the kids. It's a little bit different from adult court, superior court, things of that nature. Our entire focus is rehabilitation so that they don't end up in adult jails, adult prisons. So when I step on the scene, I'm getting a kid that's made some mistakes, that's gone down the wrong path. And the court system, based off of our reputation and what we've done, because I've been doing this 10 years, they see value in what we do. So we get the kids, and then we begin the process of trying to cultivate a different normal for them. And I'm a firm believer that it must start with the mindset. If you really look at how the world works, our actions are a byproduct of the way that we think. So if we really want kids to change the way that they're acting, the way that they're moving, the different decisions they're making, it has to be a mental transformation. That is the prerequisite for any transformation in any area of your life. Once we begin to let them know that there's more than what they're experiencing, right? A lot of kids are in survival mode. So when we show them that there's more, we give them hope. And hope jumpstarts that entire process of transformation in their life.
When it comes to our young people, something I'm noticing, particularly here in Georgia, and I believe it's happening in North Carolina as well, but I'm seeing that these young people who are committing crimes and who are extremely involved in I would say like some of the debauchery that's happening in society are getting younger and younger. It appears to be that they're like 10, 11, and 12 years old. Is this a phenomenon, and why is this happening?
Yeah, so that's a good point. This is a phenomenon. A lot of the kids that you're seeing targeted at that age, there's a lot of gang activity. And what we call is the OGs, or the older adults that are getting the younger kids to perform the crimes, because the consequences have traditionally been a lot more lenient, right? So in a matter of, I have a kid, and I'm not going to go in detail with names, but he caught a robbery charge, and a lot of the stuff that he caught on that charge was because they gave him all of the tools, all of the weapons to use, and he was found with it. Now, the kid was only 12 years old, okay? But because the older adult knew if he got found with that stuff, he'd be looking at substantial time. So they gave it to the young boy at 12 because they knew he would just go to juvenile. And once you get out of juvenile, the actual record is sealed. But here's what happened in North Carolina last year. December, at the end of the year in December, they changed the rule. So now moving forward, you can be charged as an adult as young as 14 years old, depending on the nature of the crime. So if you have a violent felony, you can be charged as an adult. And unfortunately, there are kids in my program that were impacted by that rule change, and now they are facing adult charges. I have a kid right now we went to court with just to show support, because I don't have jurisdiction in adult court, but I still show support because the kid was with me in juvenile. And they told this kid he was looking at life. 16 years old, looking at life. Now, I'm not condoning the behavior, but what I want these young men to understand is that we must think before we act, because now you can be held accountable as an adult. And that's a life-changing thing. Imagine 16-year-old and you have now permanent felony on your record. You haven't even began to live life. You haven't began to even embark on the true journey of adulthood and chasing your goals, chasing your dreams. You've already put a or sort of like a ceiling on your sky. We must take more priority in saving this generation, because the things that are happening now, they don't understand. It impacts how they live 5, 10, 15 years later.
What are they saying to these young people that's causing them to want to leave school, leave the opportunity of a bright future, and go in this direction?
A lot of the kids we're dealing with are coming from low income households. Okay. They're coming from broken homes. They're coming from situations where the father is not present. And if he is, he's not a lot. So the older men will take these kids under their arm, and, they'll put some money in their pocket. They'll buy them the nice Jordans, right? These young men are looking for companionship. They're looking to be a part of something. They're looking to belong. So the kids that they're prying on, or the kids that they're preying on, are the kids that don't have much. They can be enticed by little. You buy them a nice sandwich, put some money in his pocket, make him feel good, give him a good haircut, give him some nice clothes. Now his self-esteem rises. And, when you come from a home of lack, and you're getting on the school bus and everybody has on the nice clothes and you don't, you want to be a part of that too. And, and that's why it's so important for us as men. We have to be there for our sons. It's imperative because if you don't be there for them, the big homie will be there for them. And, the environments that they live in, when they open their door, they're there. A lot of the kids are living in the concrete jungle right now. So if we're not present as mentors, guess who's on the block every day they walk to the school bus? The big homie, the gang leaders, right? They will engage these kids on a regular basis. So if we're not there to counteract that, then guess what happens? They go to where they can get the love that they're not getting at home.
Yeah. So, what do you say to them? Like, I'm assuming you've seen some successes working with youth, and there are some that really respect you and look up to you. I know you bring them to church with you, and you create all these opportunities for them to kind of just be a kid. So, what do you say to them that you found to be effective?
It's more so relationship. We can speak to the kids and tell them what to do. We can say the right words, but it's always going to boil down to genuine relationship. My first thing when I meet a kid is I create a vision board with them. That's how we start the relationship. The relationship is founded on vision, destiny, purpose, right? So when I sit down, I tap into that kid and see what does that kid want their life to look like. And I ask them, if there was no reservations, no contingencies in a perfect world, what would you do to make an income in this world? And then that's where we start. Then I start to see the things that they're passionate about. And once I figure out what they love, I get leverage because now, if this is what you want to do, then we need to make some changes over here. And they immediately see me now as an individual that's trying to take them from where they are to where they want to be. And the buy-in starts there. And then we show up consistently on a regular basis. And that's what they lack. They don't have people that's consistently showing up for them all the time. Now, I'm not going to say every kid is in that dynamic, but the majority of them, their parents should have been in a program like this when they was young, but it wasn't available. So those same issues, those same problems, that same trauma now has habituated in their kids and it's rubbed off on them. So what I also find myself doing is not only mentoring the kids, but pouring into the parents. Because if I can be truthful, I have these kids for maybe 10% of their life every week. So I got to make sure the home is conducive for growth. If I'm planting seeds in them when they're with me, but they're with their parents majority of the time, I got to make sure that environment is set up for growth. Because if that environment is not conducive for growth, then we're being counterproductive. So
That's a great point. Working with the youth, I mean, working with the parents as well as the youth, because you're right. I feel like it is a team effort, because you're only there for a short period of time, but your impact is strong, particularly being a male. And it's so funny because I'm sure you've seen, and if you haven't, let me know, but have you seen the stuff circulating with President Obama saying that every boy should have a gay man pretty much in his life? Have you seen that?
That I think a lot of times boys need is not just exposure to one guy.
Mm-hmm. One dad.
One dad. No matter how good the dad
is. He can't be
it can't be everything. And then that boy may need somebody to give the boy some perspective on the dad.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
One of the most valuable things I learned as a guy was I had a gay professor in college at a time when gay folks still weren't out of life. Became one of my favorite professors and was a great guy and would call me out when I started saying stuff that was ignorant.
Mm-hmm.
You need that.
Mm-hmm.
To show empathy and kindness. And by the way, you need that person in your friend group so that if you then have a boy who's gay or non-binary or what have you, they have somebody that they can go, okay, I'm not alone in this.
My opinion on this is the father should be the priority. That relationship should be the main focus. because that's the organic relationship that most of the men in this world that do lack fathers have. Now, there is a dynamic, we have kids that are homosexual, and I understand that, we live in a world of choice or whatnot. Most of the kids I work with are not homosexuals. So I feel like they need to see a man in his true essence, right? True leadership, not to put down any type of one's sexual choice, but if we being transparent, I'm a youth pastor, and I take it back to the Bible. The ultimate leadership is a masculine man, right? And, we're not hating on anybody because your choice is your choice. But, from my standpoint, I would disagree with Obama in that regard.
Yeah.
I think that when we're talking about mentoring kids from the ages of 11 to about 17 is what I work with, they're very impressionable, right? And we don't want to shift the narrative
Yeah.
based on our hidden agendas, right?
Yeah.
So we must always, always be mindful. What is the organic truth for the child that I'm dealing with? I don't see why we would put that in place for a kid that doesn't identify in that regard.
Yeah, no, that makes a lot of sense, and I totally agree with you. I feel like when we tell boys that they need to tone down their masculinity, I feel like you almost make them afraid of their own masculinity rather than teaching them how to manage it. Kelvin always says, when he says as men, we always have to learn how to manage our emotions, because if we don't learn that, we will destroy something, right?
Mhm.
And I think that's what you're saying, because nowadays they're not fighting anymore in the like with hands and fists, and in the boxing ring. Like, these kids are fighting with guns and they're taking lives. So, as a community, would you say that it is normal, or it's healthy for the community to have a sense of fear when it comes to associating with young men who are in the lifestyle? Or would you say that that is a little over exaggerated?
Yeah, that's a great question. I always say we don't want to operate in fear. We just want to operate. We want to be cautious naturally because there are things happening in communities that are violent, but we have to understand the root cause of it. These are kids, right? And a lot of times it's just a matter of guidance. They don't have anybody that's cultivating the right type of decision-making processes. They're not being fed the right information to produce the lifestyle that's conducive for growth, right? Um, I always go to court and I see how the narrative is painted that these kids are dangerous to community, they're dangerous to society, they're a menace. And yes, the actions can sometimes align to that. But I'm one that we don't want to make someone's mistake become their reality or their permanent identity, right? These are children that were misguided. And if we can be transparent, a lot of us that are doing well in life, if we didn't have the guidance that we may have had, we could have easily been on the other side of the spectrum. So I don't want us to fear the kids. Yes, we need to be cautious because, yes, there's some scary things going on. But at the end of the day, that's a kid. That's a
Yeah.
right? They're being influenced. Most of the kids that are out here doing these crimes are followers. That's why it's so important to cultivate leadership.
Yeah.
I'm always a big advocate for leadership with kids because if you're not able to walk to the beat of your own drum, you'll be subjected to the quality of the environment that surrounds you. And that's scary because now you leave your life up to chance. If you have the right people around, can get away with that mindset. But if you don't have the right people around you, then you're at risk because you don't have the leadership skills to walk to the beat of your own drum. So, but to answer your question, I don't never want anyone to operate in fear because these are kids. We have to be a part of the solution, right? Fear is just, when you operate in fear, you tend to form a judgment on an individual, right? Fear is because you're judging who you see. And what we need to understand is we don't judge the person, judge the action, right? So what can we do to be a part of this? Because if I acted in fear, I can never do the job that I do. You know, I go into homes, right? I go right to where they are. I meet them where they're at. You know, and then it takes a special type of person to do this work too, because lived experience makes you really good at this. Because I've been in those situations. But to speak to the community, it's hard to not operate in fear, but we don't want to be fearful because that creates a different narrative. And you see the kid as a fear. That's how you see so many kids getting shot by police now, out of fear. Now, I'm not here to weigh on if it was a righteous shooting or not. That's not what I'm saying. But fear sometimes leaves you to do things that you normally wouldn't do because of the lens that you look through when you're operating in fear.
Yeah, you feel like this heightened sense of I have to protect myself because I
Mm-hmm.
have narratives surrounding me. And yeah, I totally get that. All right, let's close on positive notes, solutions, and what do you see in the future with your youth? Just so I guess in order to split it up, let's start with solutions. What are some of the things that's working, and what are some of the things that you want to see happen in order to see our boys go in a different direction?
Definitely, definitely. Well, one thing that I feel is working is being present in the forms of group sessions. We do a lot of those. I sit on a lot of different boards in the city, so I connect the kids to other opportunities. So, one of the biggest things you can do for a kid is broaden their horizon. I had a young man that when I met him, they told me he wouldn't graduate high school. They told me he wouldn't do anything with his life. I got that kid enrolled in college. He's doing construction now, right? So, I connected him to other leaders. I expanded what was possible. We took him on a college campus and he started to catch the vision, right? I think one of the biggest things you can do for a kid that I see is working is not only expose them to what they should do, but help them do it. Help them do it. I didn't tell him to go to the college campus. I took him. I didn't tell him to do the financial aid. I did it with him, right? If we really want to be a part of the solution, we have to show these kids because if they're coming from broken homes where they've never been an example, how can we ask a kid to do what they never seen orchestrated in their life, right? So we
Agree.
have to be hands-on. We have to show them, not tell them, show them, be a part of that process, engage in the process of transforming their life, right? Um, you know, Moving forward, I would love to see more programs set up for our minority youth, giving them access, not on the back end when the premium, or let me revert it, not when the kids that you want there has filled up, now we have extras. No,
Yeah.
let's
Yeah.
prioritize the kid that everybody's giving up on. Let's
Yeah.
prioritize the kid that nobody believes can be great, right? If you look at, I always take it back to the Bible. If you look at the Bible, some of the most impactful men had a checkered past, right? Think about it. Moses was a murderer. Noah was a drunk. King David was an adulteress. I can continue to go on, right? But God used men in mighty ways. These kids weren't just born. They were created by God with a purpose, a unique skill set and gift that nobody can do like they do. And I always remind them of that. No matter what you're going through right now, this isn't it. This is just something you got to go through to grow. And I'm here to help you get through it, my brother.
That sounds like a message for adults too. Because I know a lot of adults that need to hear that message too. But keep going. As you were talking, what I thought about was that we are dealing with little kids, you know? I mean, if they're under 16 years old, I mean, these are babies. And as you
Mhm.
get older, it becomes more and more apparent that they are so young. And I do
Mhm.
think that we as a society has to start looking at it like that, that these are children that are being misguided. And I love what you were saying about kind of like walking them through their help versus just telling them what to do. And that's where mentorship comes into play. For those who may not be a part of an organization and they are just living their normal day, how does mentorship, what does mentorship look like to them? You know, like what would you say? How can someone mentor if they're not a part of the organization that you are? They don't have a caseloads of youth, and they're not as active in the community.
Yeah, awesome. So mentorship is a lifestyle, right? Live a life that the kids that you have access to can follow, right? Live a life that they can look to and gain wisdom, knowledge, right? If I can just be honest with you, in my own personal life, I've had several mentors. And a lot of times, some of the most important lessons I've learned from my mentors, they didn't tell me. I watched how they maneuvered. I watched how they handled their family. How did they handle adversity? How did they handle a irate person, right? How did they work the room? How did they dress? What is their posture? What is their verbiage? Just by watching. So, if you're not in this realm that I'm in, you can mentor by just being a light, being an example, living a life that has a personal standard for excellence, right? Being the best version of yourself and leading with love. That's what you can do. Everybody can do that.
Well, thank you so much, Big Brother. We are up against a commercial break, and after the break, I'm going to give my closing thoughts on this particular subject. But thank you so much, Wham. I know that the work you're doing is going to produce the fruit. And if you could just tell everyone, how can they follow you? What's your social media? What do you have going on that they can kind of click on? But most importantly, how can they connect with you?
Yes, definitely. So you can connect with us with my mentoring, the nonprofit I work with at Unifor1. That's UNIFOUR1 on Instagram. It's on Facebook. I also do motivational speaking. You can connect with me on my YouTube channel called Morning Motivation with Will Jones. You can also connect with me on Instagram, Will Jones Speaks. And then also you can follow my podcast, Will Jones Speaks, is on all platforms. So no matter what you're into, there's always something you can connect with us on.
Make sure you follow him, make sure you connect with him, and get some of that good knowledge. You know, I think the best part about this conversation is that you said a lot of things that I believe can lead towards people like taking that and kind of making them their own talking points, so that when they're talking to young people, they can have not only the mindset that's different, that not only will they reduce their fear levels so that they can really adequately help serve this young person, but they also can talk to them about vision and about being able to move forward. So I feel like you packaged a lot in this short period of time. Definitely going to have you back. And especially as this conversation continues to unfold. So thank you so much. And to everyone who is listening right now, do not leave the table. We have one more segment coming up. You're listening to the Janelle King Show right here on Extra 106.3. We'll be right back. This is the Janelle King Show right here on Extra 106.3, where we discuss kitchen table topics that are typically banned from family gatherings but are absolutely necessary in order to have a strong republic. And if you're joining us for the first time, don't worry. You can catch an encore episode tomorrow at 9 a.m. right here on Extra 106.3. And remember, our podcast drops every Tuesday wherever you get your podcast. And if you're feeling eager, you can watch the video podcast right now on YouTube. Just remember to subscribe to our YouTube and Rumble pages, and your likes, comments, and shares are always welcomed. Now grab a seat and let's get back to the table. Welcome back to the Janelle King Show. I'm Janelle King. This is Extra 106.3, and this is where we discuss kitchen table topics that are typically banned from family gatherings but are absolutely necessary in order to have a strong republic. And today's table topic is the harsh reality of the state of our youth. So before the break, we discuss a reality that just can't be ignored, and it's the state of our youth, especially when it comes to young Black men in America. The data is sobering. About 70% of Black children are born out of wedlock, and broken families often lead to dropping out of school, gangs, and crime. Statistics say that nearly 1 in 3 Black men will serve time in prison, often due to a lack of opportunity and support. A cycle that's hard to break. But the solution isn't just about law enforcement. It's about fixing the root causes, supporting education, rebuilding families, and creating real opportunities. We must restore the role of fathers and invest in programs that help our youth succeed before it's too late. And to help us understand this firsthand, we heard from my brother, William Jones. William works with at-risk youth, helping families avoid the juvenile justice system. His work shows us that there's hope if we act now. We can change the course of our youth's future, and it starts with seeing every youth as a child, by tackling the fear and the stigmas that causes us to shy away from mentorship, choosing to not only tell, but show our young people. So what is the solution? We need to promote values that foster resilience, discipline, and personal responsibility. We must support policies and programs that prioritize character building, work ethic, and family stability. Our youth need to learn that success is not instant, but earned through effort, through perseverance, and through faith in God. Whether we like it or not, the generations coming behind us will be the adults leading the way. We need to make sure that this great responsibility is not on the backs of a few of our young people. Our strength as a nation depends on our young people, and it's time we step up. I want to remind us all of an undeniable truth, and that's that the strength of our nation depends on the strength of our youth. Our young people, especially our young boys and young men, face challenges that threaten their future and in turn threatens the future of America. From mental health struggles to social skills and a concerning decline in work ethics, these issues are real, but they're not insurmountable. It's about more than just policies and statistics. It's about leadership, character, and the values we choose to uphold. We need to foster discipline, responsibility, and faith. Values rooted in hard work and accountability. These are the things that will help turn the tide, rebuild trust, and restore hope. Because our job is to support and empower our children, to teach them the importance of perseverance and personal responsibility. Because if we fail to act, future generations may carry the weight of neglect and misguided policies. But I believe deep down, we have the power to change this narrative. So as you go about your day, remember, it is on us to ensure that tomorrow's leaders are stronger, more resilient, and more committed to the principles that made our country great. Let's be bold, let's be unwavering, and let's get to work together. Our future depends on the choices we make today. Let's choose wisely. Let's choose to lead with faith, responsibility, and hope. Until next time, stay unafraid, stay unapologetic, and never stop seeking the truth.